Hello, I'm Steve Olson with the Florida Department of Transportation. It's that time of the year again when we begin working on our 5-year work program, which tells us what type of projects we're going to be working on here in this district. This includes roads, bridges, multimodal transit, ports, and space. You know, about $1 billion worth of work flows through this district each year, and people have questions. How does it all work?
I pay gas tax. Where does the money go?
When you fill up at the pump, you're paying federal, state, and local gasoline taxes. And here in Florida, that's about 50 cents a gallon on average. So no matter whether the price of gas is $3 a gallon or $3.50 a gallon, that gas tax remains the same.
Of that amount, the federal gas tax is 18.4 cents per gallon, and the statewide gas tax for Florida is 14.5 cents per gallon. The gas taxes, in combination with several other sources, provide the funding to improve and maintain the transportation network that we count on in the Central Florida area and statewide.
How are gas taxes raised and lowered?
Gasoline taxes are either raised or lowered through legislation on the federal and state level. Local governments have the option to have a gas tax as well, but it has to be consistent with Florida law.
But it seems I'm paying more than just gas tax for transportation projects.
You're correct. Transportation project funding is provided through various sources such as the State Transportation Trust Fund, rental car surcharges, and vehicle registration fees. Other local taxes include discretionary sales taxes, tolls, and local optional gas taxes.
I drive on these roads. How do you decide which roads to build and which one to widen?
To identify a project, input is collected from many different sources. Initially, counties and cities develop their own list of projects. This includes roadway, multimodal transit, aviation, seaports, space, and enhancement projects such as trails. These lists of projects are then submitted to their local metropolitan and transportation planning organizations. These planning organizations rank the projects and organize them into one overall list for the region. The planning organizations then submit their project priority lists to FDOT.
FDOT then evaluates it based on its impact to safety. Does it reduce congestion? Does it increase mobility? And what's the overall impact and effect on the region?
It seems like it takes a long time to build a road. Why is that?
Constructing a project doesn't happen in just one step. In fact, it can take several years before shovels are put into the ground. Extensive studies have to be done.
One example is a Project Development and Environment Study, or PD&E, which looks at the social, economic, and environmental impacts associated with a proposed transportation project and gets the public involved. The project must go through design. Additional right-of-way might have to be purchased. Once these steps are completed, construction may begin.
Sounds like there's quite a bit involved to have a good transportation system.
In today's economic environment, it's important to identify creative funding alternatives to get more projects from conception to construction.
A safe and efficient transportation system is vital to Florida's economy and to the quality of life. For every dollar spent on transportation, there's a $5 return, which increases productivity and benefits the overall economy.
How do I get involved?
In selecting projects.
Or voicing my opinion.
Whether you walk, drive, ride a bicycle, fly on a plane, or use mass transit, the district's 5-year work program is going to impact you in some way. So that's why it's vital that you're involved as we go through the development process.
And your opinion matters. To learn more, visit the work program website where you can view interactive maps of planned projects county by county and submit questions or comments.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us here at the Florida Department of Transportation anytime. The number is on your screen.
Good morning, everyone. I know it's early, but it's good that everybody's awake. I'm Jerry Allender. I'm chairman of the Space Coast Area Transportation Organization, also known as TPO. And on behalf of all the members of the TPO, the staff, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming today and being part of the Brevard 2014 Transportation Symposium. We appreciate all of you being here to help us envision what the Space Coast will look like in the next 25 years. And even more important, how are we going to get there? By plane, train, or automobile? We are already the only place on the Earth that's quinter-modal transportation that has that. We have road, rail, ship, air, and space. And this is important because access to high-skilled labor and transportation options are the most important factors when businesses consider choosing a location. They also consider the quality of life. So we need to include walking, bicycling, pedaling, taking the bus, and connecting the amenities and connecting the communities. The TPO is responsible for coordinating with all of Brevard's cities and towns to develop a comprehensive transportation plan for the Space Coast. This symposium is an opportunity for local governments to hear what their neighbors are planning and to envision how they will link together. We also want to understand what is being planned by other transportation providers like Cape Canaveral Seaport, Melbourne International Airport, and my favorite other organization, which is the Canaveral Port Authority, so that their plans and our plans are all in mesh and are working together. Their growth and development may have regional impact that affect the entire community. Finally, we will review our recently completed community survey. We asked the public what is important to them, what they like and what they don't like, what they want and what they don't want, and, very important, what they're willing to pay for. Again, thank you for taking your time and your contributions today to Brevard's 2040 Long-Range Transportation Plan. Now I'm going to turn the podium over to the TPO staff. They have an interesting and productive program planned for us this morning. And I think that's Lee. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Lee Holt. I'm on the TPO staff. Although you will be hearing my voice, it took a lot of hands to put this program together. I'd like all the members of the TPO staff to please stand and be recognized. If you need something today, we're all wearing our shirts with our logos, so if you need something, they're available to help you. Just go to one of them and they can assist. I'd also like to recognize our staff from Renaissance Planning Group. If I could have those folks stand. They're all in the back. This is our consulting team who's working with us on the long-range transportation program. First, I'd like to ask you to turn your cell phones off. Usually it's me. I've already turned mine off. So I'm going to ask the rest of you to turn it off or put it on vibrate because we want everybody to hear everything that goes on. We have a really packed program. Each speaker has a limited time that they were given in advance. We do have a timekeeper who will make sure we stay on task. Diana, will you please raise our sign and show them? We have 30-second signal, and it's time to stop. And then Stephen has a big hook underneath the table. In order to stay on task, we will not have questions during the program, but it is very important that all of you participate. You got a program when you came in. If you do not have a program, please raise your hand and the staff will bring you one. Inside the program is a feedback form and a straw poll. This is where you give us your opinions. And we want you to listen really closely and tell us at the end of the morning what is important to you. What did you hear today that you think should be our priorities as we move forward in the future? So we're asking you to turn these in. We have prizes for everybody that turns them in. We have a car safety tool, because we're all about transportation and safety. We also have a bottle of Louisiana hot sauce from Lockheed Martin. When the shuttle was launched successfully, the Lockheed Martin folks from Louisiana who had come in for the launch would serve cornbread and beans and Louisiana hot sauce. We have the last batch of that hot sauce available here, and you will each get a bottle to take home, if and only if you turn in your feedback form. So we are serious about your input. Okay, we are not going to take any breaks. We are going to roll right through this program. We're all grown-ups. If you need to get up and walk around, if you need a cup of coffee and refreshments, they're through that door to the left. The restrooms are out this door and to the left. You can get up and walk around quietly and take care of yourselves as the morning goes on, but we are going to move through the program. We are not going to stop for a break. I want to thank all of our speakers. Our speakers are sitting here across the front. We really appreciate the work that they did. I am wearing sunglasses because we have an incredibly bright future. It is so bright, I had to wear my sunglasses. When you put together everything that every community is doing, Brevard is going to be amazing in 2040. I am going to turn the podium over to Chris Sinclair, who will give us some background on the long-range plan. I'm on time.
Good morning. I think I just, okay, I'm set. All right, just before I get started, I want to thank staff for helping put us together, and in particular, this has been Lee's baby, so it's been enjoyable working with Lee on it. The Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization, or TPO, is made up of 19 county and city elected officials, and their primary purpose is to direct federal and state transportation funding in Brevard County. They have 3 advisory committees that support them: the Technical, Citizens, and Bicycle and Pedestrian and Trails Committee. The TPO has 3 primary products that they work on. The first is a long-range transportation plan, which I'll talk about in just a second. The second is a 5-year transportation improvement program. And the third is a prioritization of project priorities. All of these plans, programs, and priorities go to the Florida Department of Transportation for review and ultimate approval. The long-range transportation component of that is a long-range look into the future, and at least 20 years out into the future. This particular plan horizon is going to be 2040, and that time frame is needed because it takes some time to get projects planned, designed, and constructed. Any project that's funded with federal or state dollars needs to be in the long-range transportation plan before that funding can happen. The LRTP is prepared by first doing a forecast of travel demand out into the forecast horizon 20 years into the future. Use that to demand to identify what the project needs are, look at what revenues are available, and then determining what projects are cost feasible over the time horizon. LRTP covers a host of things, including road improvements, management and operations of the system, which is particularly important here in Space Coast area. Transit improvements, as well as bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Again, very multimodal look at the county. This is the currently adopted plan, and just to give you a sense of how it engages or triggers projects, 2 of the projects that are currently underway, A1A planning as well as the St. John's Heritage Parkway, are both in the LRTP, and they're both being implemented. The process, every 5 years, federal and state law mandates that the LRTP be updated. That's because of changing land use plans, funding levels, transportation policies, as well as just needs that are out there. This particular update needs to be adopted by October 2015. These are the tasks that we're going to go through. And what's going to be unique about this particular plan is the scenarios and vision that will be done to help set context for the future. And the reason this is important this time around is because the space program pretty much drove the economy here in Brevard since the 1960s. That is ebbing. And so what are the next set of economic drivers for the county? And more importantly, how does transportation help leverage those drivers? That's what we'll be looking for as we put the vision again together, and that's what we'll be talking about this morning. We've had a visioning workshop with the TPO board as well as with its advisory committees. They were interested in several things. One, what can we do? What are the county and regional issues that we can take on, and how can we help achieve a vision? They also were interested in global and national influences that may influence the plan in the county over the next 20 to 50 years. So some of the issues that they wanted to look at as we start putting together the scenarios to test the vision. First, what happens if the ports are invested in and become even stronger intermodal hubs? What happens if you improve intermodal connectivity in the county? And again, this is a very unique place because all the modes are represented, including space. What happens if you use transportation to help support job centers, commercial and industrial development? What happens if we have a more balanced approach between development and open space? What happens if we reorient development towards more walkable neighborhoods, mixed-use development, transit-oriented development? What happens if US 1 and A1A become truly multimodal corridors? Clearly, we got to start looking at alternatives to roadway widening, including intelligent transportation systems, increasing road network capacity, but arterial capacity is something that still needs to be looked at as we look forward. In terms of the influences, there was a real interesting discussion as what happens if what the past market demands for single-family homes and auto-oriented development patterns change and they become more mixed use and more multimodal. What are the impacts of an aging population? Quite a bit of discussion there. The baby boomers are getting older, I being one of them. What happens in terms of that impact on development patterns and mobility needs? What about increasing population diversity? How does that impact the county? Health factors and costs. How will that affect development patterns and mobility? What are the impacts of energy costs and sources, as well as weather impacts on how the county develops? What are the impacts of technology, in particular looking at intelligent and efficient cars? What does that do to the roadway capacity or the ability to get from point A to point B? What about improved telecommunications? We're on the leading edge of that now. How does that impact not only personal travel, but freight and goods movement? As was mentioned earlier, there was a public survey that was done. I hope you all had a chance to look at some of the results that popped up. We asked people about existing conditions, future aspirations, and funding methods. And in terms of the findings, not surprisingly, most of the respondents are using cars as their primary means of transportation. What was interesting is there was satisfaction, both in travel to work as well as travel to shopping and other things, with the roadway system overall. And because of that, there wasn't an overwhelming need to improve roadway capacity through newer, wider roads. But there was a continuing need to look at traffic signal operation and intersections and managing the system. There was also interest in non-auto options and improving walk paths to destinations, bike and walk paths to destinations. And for those people that were familiar with Space Coast Transit, there was interest in looking at more transit routes, hours of operation, and frequency. In terms of looking out into the future, interesting, there was some support, a lot of support for mixed-use development, redevelopment and growth on the US 1 corridor, as well as intercity and regional rail. And then with regards to transportation revenue options, there was little support for increasing any revenue options that were laid out there, but of the potential revenue options that were listed on the survey, impact fees were the preferred option and gas taxes the least favored. So this morning, we'll be focusing in on the meta plan part of what we're doing, which is synthesizing all the plans that have been done in the county to make sure that we are capturing all of those properly in the long-range transportation plan. That will be supported by the discussions that we have here this morning. So we'll hear presentations this morning from all of the different folks that are involved in transportation and development patterns in Brevard County. And then we'll have a discussion this afternoon asking people, why are these initiatives important? How do you see this long-range transportation plan influencing or helping you get to where you want to go? So that is it for me. Thank you.
Next is John Moore with the Florida Department of Transportation.
Good morning. I wanted to share a couple of things that I think we're doing that you be interested in, because we believe it supports the where Brevard is going. In the SIS, Strategic Intermodal System plan, that's a statewide plan, and the cost feasible plan is really like your long-range transportation plan. It's just our version of the same thing. And we're happy to show you this. I think many of you have been aware of being able to secure funding for these projects, the State Road 528 projects, widening to 6 lanes. So the 3 projects that are listed here, funding total of $432 million, I think is one of the things that we've considered. And we've actually taken this through the Trans Value tool, the tool we use to vet the value of projects, and 2.4 benefit cost ratio shows a positive return on investment for this corridor. So that's included in our long-range transportation plan. We also wanted to show you some of the neighboring projects that have been put in this plan to show you how robust this plan is. These are some of the projects to your north, and these things have been advanced so that there's actually been some action in there. You can actually see some of those efforts going. One of the things that we have found is a lot of different type of requests for projects that are considered multimodal. They're called complete streets. They're called context-sensitive solutions. There's a lot of these new buzzwords going around. And these are projects we're being asked. We have been asked to consider, to look at, to study. And of course, that's a new set of toolboxes for us, and something that we are getting in as a result of the requests. And of course, Brevard is no different. You're looking at things. You have a complete streets program. So as a result, we need to get up to speed and kind of trade out our toolbox and be responsive to your needs. So this is one of the efforts. It's the District 5 Multimodal Corridor Planning Guidebook. That's my brainchild, and it's to be able to respond. And we have started to use this guidebook, and we're also providing workshops across our district on it. We hope to be here and be working with you and showing you how this guidebook is used sometime maybe early next year, and we look forward to that as well. But this will help us to be responsive and to show you how you can work with us and make us more successful at these efforts. You know, this from the prologue of this document, it's clear that this is a planning methodology based upon something very, very simple, a place that sometimes is often not started in my vantage point of transportation world, asking questions. And so here's an example of what the prologue says, and one of 2 individuals that basically say, you got to start with asking questions, and asking the right questions and fully understanding what people's needs are, what their goals are, and how we can accommodate that. And that's what this guidebook is all about. That's how it starts, and that's how you build an appropriate planning methodology. This is what a snapshot of what the methodology looks like in the various phases of that, defining the problem. It's not a new or foreign, but it's overlaid over the decision-making that you'll see that DOT will be supporting to make the request you ask successful. So it's defining the problem, defining guiding principles, building real purpose and need, not after the fact type of, well, this is the project we want, so let's get a purpose and need that fits it. No, this is giving you a comprehensive approach. This book was really developed to help us to get into transit and rail passenger support, a methodology for that, and we are doing that. We're supporting many alternative analysis in our district, and we look forward to continue working with Brevard to make your project successful. Thank you.
I am not Trey Carlson. He works for NASA, so he is on furlough today and will not be with us. But we do have a video from the Planning and Development Office that talks about the direction that NASA and Kennedy Space Center are going with commercialization.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
A rich history.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
A promising future.
We have liftoff of the Falcon 9, Stage 1.
Building on a successful past.
Liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Discovery for the final time. We'll stop.
Preparing for the next generation of space transportation. NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, launching the future today.
We will partner with industry. We will invest in cutting-edge research and technology. We will set far-reaching milestones. And step by step, we will push the boundaries, not only of where we can go, but what we can do.
With an ambitious new direction and a new way of doing business, Kennedy is embracing a new relationship with the commercial space industry and other partners to build a multi-user launch complex. With its unique location, supporting infrastructure, and expert talent, Kennedy is the ideal space launch and recovery site to meet both government and commercial needs in the 21st century. Our location spans 140,000 acres. It will include a new research and technology park, Exploration Park, creating a unique collaborative community for science, innovation, and applications. Under development by Space Florida and in collaboration with NASA, Exploration Park will offer expanded commercial use of the Space Life Sciences Laboratory and support to scientific users of the International Space Station. Our facilities include multiple launch pads, the space industry's largest vehicle integration facility, world-class processing and test facilities, and a 3-mile-long runway supporting horizontal launch and recovery of space vehicles, along with specialized aviation. Our highly skilled workforce is the world's most accomplished at launching humans and high-value payloads into space. Kennedy has more than 50 years of experience in spaceflight operations, enabling mission success through innovative solutions and a commitment to our customers' needs. Our engineering and technical capabilities are recognized around the globe and unsurpassed by those of any other spaceport on the planet. Kennedy Space Center, seeking both public and private partners, helping to transform human spaceflight and grow new space markets. Reaching out to strengthen our leadership in opening the space frontier. NASA's Kennedy Space Center, enabling the exploration and development of space yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Mark Bontrager with Space Florida will share their plans for space in Florida and at Cape Canaveral Spaceport.
Great. Good morning, all. Thank you for this opportunity to spend a few minutes with you telling you about where we're headed from a Space Florida perspective in the space business. Back me up one if you don't mind. Just real quick, who is Space Florida? We're a state organization We're both a spaceport authority and an economic development team. And we also have an investment and financing role and can do some really cool stuff to help industry grow and plant itself in Florida. And we work closely with all the partners. It's really a team approach. And, you know, I was looking at the slide this morning and said I left some off. I left the TPO off this because the TPO team has been fantastic at kind of just working to institutionalize space as a mode of transportation. And because of that energy, both at the TPO and the Florida DOT, Florida is leading the nation at recognizing space as a mode of transportation. No other state gets it like Florida gets it, and that's pretty darn impressive. Now, also, a couple other bullets that are missing, and that's NASA and the Air Force, the two powerhouses that own real property out here that help this nation lead the world in space. We work very closely with all of them. It's a team sport all the way around. Next slide. Now, where are we going? We have spent a lot of time in planning over the last few years. We just, about 4 months ago, completed our Spaceport System Plan. That's a statewide look at how does Florida want to position for the future space market. And then we're recently wrapping up and hope to take it to our board here at the end of October, our Cape Canaveral Spaceport Complex Master Plan. Next slide. Quickly, the system plan is our statewide look. 2 currently FAA licensed spaceports, one here at the Cape and one up at Cecil Field, which is an old Navy base just outside of Jacksonville. They can focus on what we call the horizontal launch and landing market, things like X-Corp, Virgin Galactic, companies like that are looking at taking off horizontally and landing horizontally. Certainly the Cape Canaveral Spaceport is the only place in the state where you can do those big rockets for vertical launch and vertical landing. We've also got the shuttle landing facility that'll help us on the horizontal launch and landing side as well. Next slide. For the Cape Canaveral Spaceport Complex Master Plan, you guys know the Cape. You know what the Cape brings to the market, and we're actively marketing that to the space community so they understand, and already they recognize the Cape's the best place in the world to launch from. How do I get there, and how do I make my business operate there? And we're aggressively involved with all of the different players in that domain. Next slide. So this is kind of an opportunity gap we like to describe. If you just look at the future, you've got a baseline that this shows a little bit of growth. There will be continued federal launches from the Cape. The Air Force and NASA are going to continue to require that Cape infrastructure to launch from. But there is some pretty significant growth, primarily in the commercial market side, that we want to capture here in Florida. And so we call this our opportunity gap. And there's emerging space systems that are coming online. You've got a horizontal launch and landing capacity that we can expand to make Florida the best place for these businesses to plant themselves. And there's a lot of other game changers going on within the telecommunications domain with small satellites. I mean, they're about as big as your fist that can do some pretty cool stuff on orbit. And so we're focused on facing that gap and winning that market to Florida. Next slide. So as you look at that future, where do we want to put our investments? And we see these 5 areas being the area we need to invest. Commercial heavy lift. They're going there. We want to make Florida the best place for them to plant and grow, and positioning infrastructure dollars for that. Commercial crew and cargo. Already NASA has put significant investment into this. Industry is rolling into it in a big way. As space tourism takes off over the next 5-10 years, we want Florida to be the place they do that. There's opportunities to invest in infrastructure in that way. Attracting new emerging space systems like I talked about. We're already going to start to see some of these pop publicly here in the next few months with some new space systems that are going to plant themselves here in Florida at the Cape because of our investments. And then expanding horizontal launch and landing. Again, you've got unmanned aerial vehicles. You've got the rocket guys that take off and land horizontally. The Cape is a perfect place because it's away from the public. It's got the range. It's perfect for those low-volume, high-value assets to test, research, and develop and take themselves to a market over the next few years. And then there's some statewide space capacity we need to see develop as well. Next slide. Some key initiatives. Next slide. Launch and landing. Horizontal launch and landing. NASA announced at the end of June that they intend to transfer the shuttle landing facility to Space Florida. We're in discussions with NASA, lots of good dialogue right now as we move towards setting the conditions that are necessary at the shuttle landing facility to allow both government and commercial use of that asset to create jobs and benefit for the people of Florida. So that's going on, very aggressive, a lot of action going on that front right now. Next slide. Unmanned aircraft. If you look at this market, unmanned systems projected about an $89 billion global market, a tremendous amount of research and development. The Cape and the shuttle landing facility are an ideal place for a lot of that work to take place. It's away from the public. You've got controlled airspace. You can do a lot of testing out there. We are currently leading a team of at least 80 companies. I think it might be up to about 100 companies statewide on our initiative here for the FAA, for the unmanned aircraft systems. And we see Florida, the statewide opportunities for Florida to be very, very positive. Next slide. And then the last initiative I want to hit real quick is our commercial launch initiative up at Shiloh. The FAA is leading the environmental study on this. They recently selected a prime contractor, and we're moving to negotiations with that prime contractor. Hope to get them working here at the end of the month. And that EIS effort's probably an 18 to 24-month effort. Got to do that homework up front before we make any other future decisions. Next slide. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Next is Peggy, excuse me, Peggy Busaka with the City of Titusville.
Lee, you're not the only one who can't say it. I want to take a moment and look at this slide for two reasons. One, my husband asked whenever his name is shown that we take a minute and pause. But the second reason is because of this bridge shows you why it is that all of you are here today and what it is we do. This bridge was one of the worst bridges in the state of Florida, and now it is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece because the community and the state worked together. It's a masterpiece because they made it look really good. It's not just about transportation, but it also changed the community in the city of Titusville. It brought a sense of pride into the city. It increased tourism, economic development, community events. This is a wonderful example of why it is that transportation's important. Now, I'm going to tell you on my way out, I'm probably not going to go out and look at Wickham Road and go, wow, I'm proud to be on Wickham Road. But there are community transportation facilities that do that, and all of us can participate in that. Now, on to the next slide. Oh, I can do that myself. Okay. In Titusville's byline is that we're the gateway to nature and space, and we don't have facility issues that a lot of communities have when it comes to the roads are too crowded. So what we have looked at is what we would like to think about is how we participate in trails. The Space Coast Loop Trail is, Titusville is right down there at the bottom. And we're part of the trail that is going to put the East Coast and the West Coast all together in one giant trail. What you can see there are the different segments of the trail, and what you cannot see is that there is also a heritage trail that the city of Titusville is putting together, and that is not shown here, but it goes all the way down through the city limits. What I'm going to show you next is a portion of that little tiny light blue down at the bottom. And this is the first phase of the rail trail. It's Dray Park, and this we expect construction to start in November on this. This is a piece of property that the school board and the city worked together that the school board had, the city, it's the other way around, the city had, the school board acquired it, and we are working with them to put this trail in as well as other facilities. The second is the Rail Trail Phase 2. What you see here is a bridge that's probably not going to look anything like the bridge that's going across Hopkins, but the bridge is expected to begin bidding in January, and it'll take 3 years to construct, and that will be part of getting people over Hopkins. In addition to that, you see a rendering there for the proposed Titusville station that will be part of, we hope, part of a trail system that will connect people when we have rail opportunities for people to come and bring their bikes and get on the trail. So we have some money set aside for the design of that. We have a riverfront trail. This is part of the Riverfront Park here in Titusville. You can see our lovely bridge there in the back. And so We also plan to have people, as they come into Titusville and across the state, to have an opportunity to go through our historic downtown. Safe routes to school is something that we've been working with in Titusville. We have phase 2 of this project is Jackson Middle and Coquina Elementary, and we expect to have construction awarded in November. And finally, complete streets. The TPO recently included the Hopkins Avenue Complete Street project. You can see what Hopkins Avenue looks like now and what we expect that it can look like in the future. So I think that's the end of that. Thank you very much.
Ed Weegriff from the City of Cocoa.
Good morning. I'm Ed Weegriff, Public Works Director of City of Cocoa, and I'm under a little pressure because my city manager's here this morning. So John Tinkanich was in charge of our community planning department, and he's now our city manager. So I'm under a little pressure, so I'm going to be a little nervous here. City of Cocoa, how do you advance it here? Space bar. Next slide. Cocoa at the Crossroads. As an engineer, I kind of went through and before I started my talk, kind of took a little inventory of Cocoa's assets. So I lived here 50 years, kind of take things for granted. So Cocoa, we're 12 miles from Rockets, 35 miles to Orlando International Airport. Most people can drive there in less than half an hour. We're blessed with interstates. On one side of us, I-95, we have 2 exits, and on 528, there's 2 exits. So Cocoa is well blessed with transportation connections, 10 miles to the port, freight rail through the city. We're also blessed with transit. We have 4 transit routes through Cocoa and the main transfer station. Waterfront, Cocoa started with its waterfront, and that's an important part of our transportation assets also. And finally, Cocoa is blessed with a very efficient roadway system. We have I-95 on the west side, 528 on the north side, US 1 on the east side, and 520 on the south side. Perfect traffic circle around City of Cocoa. So that's where we are. So where do we want to be transportation-wise? Well, first of all, Cocoa wants to be a livable community. We have 17,000 residents that we have in the city. We need to make our community more livable. We want to be a destination of choice for residents. We just don't want people passing through on 528 and US 1. We want to build on our historic past, and finally we want to provide economic growth areas. So how do we make our community more livable for current residents? Well, we want to build on the success of our Complete Streets program. Cocoa was awarded a Complete Streets grant for both Peachtree Street, I'm not doing that, for Peachtree Street and for Florida Avenue. And both of these streets are quite different streets. Peachtree passes through a mixed-use area, lower income area, whereas Florida Avenue is an extension of our downtown. Very different uses. But as I was out and about on Peachtree Street, I met people, and we talked about getting out and looking and talking to people. There's a Veterans of America Center that has a facility with 50 retired veterans. They're required to walk across Peachtree Street to check in every day. Probably a good place for a crosswalk. So, you know, getting out, seeing what the needs of the people are. Most of the people that live here don't have cars. Well, they rely on the bus. Where's the bus? Down at 520. Do they have a sidewalk to 520? No, they don't. So what we want to do is take the success of our Complete Streets, expand it out away from these two complete streets that we have and connect them to other areas. Find out that a lot of our residents are aging, they're low income, they ride the bus. They need to get to bus stations. They don't have cars. They're elderly and they ride their little mobility scooters. Wow, they don't go over curbs where there's no curb ramps. So, you know, we're finding a lot of things that we need to do to make our existing community and infrastructure livable for the people that are here. Finally, also we want to use the FDOT corridor study. Oh my. To encourage multimodal use of existing corridors where there's cars. Finally, we want to build on our, not finally, we do want to build on our historic past. Cocoa started with its waterfront. We want to expand our waterfront area to, oh my. All right, and finally, we want to provide future growth corridors at State Road 524. We have a very significant growth area out in this area with that represents about 20% of our housing, over 1,000 acres of developable industrial property. And so Cocoa is at the crossroads of an exciting future. And of course, there's the train. So we'll let that be another thing out there. Thank you.
Next is Alex Townsend from the City of Rockledge.
Good morning. So when we talk about Rockledge and what we see for in 2040, a few things come to mind. As Ed touched on, we talk about a train station at the border of Cocoa and Rockledge. And some of the other things that we look at is that we'll probably have a population increase of about 11,000 plus residents of what we currently have, which would bring us up to about 40,000 residents. In those residents, we'll have about, our population will be aging, and and it will be an older population of 75 plus. About 15% of our population will be that, and 70 plus will probably have about 20% of our population. So how do we meet the needs for transportation for those aging citizens, and what do we do to make sure they get to doctor's appointments and to the golf course and all over town? So one of the things that we talked about with the train station was this is a vision that we have across the street from the corner of Rosa Jones. It's where the Searstown Carnival Mall is, and the idea is that it would be a mix of a downtown area with some condos that would overlook the water and stuff like that. So the idea is that it would be a TOD that would work with the train station and really redevelop that area and meet the needs of our citizens. Some other things that we have talked about and looking at alternative transportation needs is looking into like a nonprofit company that will do door-to-door services for aging residents. So they will pick you up at your home and take you to your doctor's office, and the idea is that it's a buddy system. So it's not necessarily this young guy coming to pick you up. It is your friend who you play bunco with or bingo with and takes you where you need to be and then takes you home. And the idea is that it provides low-cost transportation for our aging residents, as well as some other things that we have thought about is having wider multimodal sidewalks that would allow for golf carts for those that no longer feel competent to drive but feel that they can use golf carts to get where they need to around town. That is something else that we have really looked at and thought that would meet the needs of our residents. So that like a mini roadway, and that is where we are at as far as thinking about what Rockledge will look like in 2040 for meeting the needs of our aging population.
Next is Tim Macy with Port Canaveral.
Good morning. That seems
like we're all rushed for time. I have 1,150 slides that I need to go through here, so if you'll bear with me, we're going to do the rapid express. What happened to my button to move me forward here? Did you take it? Where am I? No, it's in the drawer. Space bar in the drawer. Oh, that's why it is. Okay. When you talk about Port Canaveral, you have to go back and look at a couple of things. Oh, look at that. That's pretty. It's a double rainbow, and that's our new building there that we're building on. But, you know, it's a modest beginning 60 years ago, and we will actually celebrate 60 years coming up here in November. You see some old things. There's a couple of people in the room that were probably here for this, and a very special look to it. But, you know, things have changed just a little bit. The big red boat's no longer with us. Where have we gone and where we're going? Let's just a couple of pictures as we go through here. Like I said, I got 1,100 slides, so it's a busy port, and that's what's coming in the future right there. Right now, those last few cruise ships that you saw were about 1,000 feet. This one's 1,350. It's got 6,500 people on it every time it lands. It's a small community, steps off the boat. Where we are today, we've got some really good, strong financials as we sit here today. We've done the team that has come in the last several years with the commission and the operating team has come up with some good, strong business models that move us forward. We're number 2 in cruise and closing in very closely. I'll show you in just a second. World-class cargo tenants with growth opportunities, which is right there. The cargo business is really on the upswing. And we like to say we're a friendly, down-to-earth kind of group of people there. Jobs created out of the port, 7,000 direct, 16,000, almost 17,000, and the economic impact in 2012 is said through the ripple effect to be over $2 billion. 4 major lines of business that come into port. There's cruise, cargo, recreation, and real estate. Now, cruise is going to be most of it. We're 70% plus in cruise in terms of our revenue stream. We're number 2 right now, but we're really on the very edge. If you do the numbers a little bit differently, we could actually be number 1 to Miami. The simple truth of it as you move forward is that you've got to expand the port to take on new and bigger ships if you're going to continue to take advantage of this enormous market. It's not just the size of the boats, but it's also the market where people want to go. The commitment to the, we also have a thing that we like to say, the commitment to the quality of service is what's going to take us forward as well. That's a view from the top. You know, the cruise business is a beautiful, sexy part of the port. You know, everybody likes to come down. As Jerry said, this is what makes it his favorite place. You know, we just run down there and take a good look at the end of the day and see those cruise ships. Yeah. One of the things that makes us interesting and a little bit different too is that we're a port of call port and a debarkation port as well, and that means that people come in, you go for your 2, 5, 7, 9-day cruises out of the port, you turn around and come back. But there's also something that makes us very unique is that over the course of a year we'll do 138 port of calls, and those are people that stop for the day, get off the boat, explore and enjoy Brevard County in the region, and then get back on the boat. The Norwegian Breakaway, which is here, first time is here on the 15th of October. There's those numbers that look real good. There's Canaveral. It says we're number 2, but if you add our port of calls and our one-day cruise lines, we're up a little bit over Miami. And that's, I would say, for next year at this time when we're standing here, we're going to be solidly in the number 1 slot. That's the plan. Port Canaveral is, as you know, it's right in the middle of everything. It goes down to the Bahamas. It allows us to touch the southeast United States and central Florida. One of the things we do, part of this piece, again, is the cargo, which makes that so important. One of our largest users of the cargo port right now is Seaport Canaveral, and that's the fuel that we run out of there. We do a lot of bulk and what's called break bulk as well. We're number 5 in the country, in the state rather, but we're growing rapidly. Part of that is that today, as we stand here today, we do about 253 movements of those big sea containers. That's a very small number. So a 10% increase in that would be, 25 of those sea containers. Our plans, and as you see as we move forward and develop the northern part of the port itself, the cargo area, is to be able to have the capacity to move about 30 of those sea containers an hour. So it's going to take us about 8 hours to catch up to where we are today over the course of that. So let me introduce you to our little friends here. This is one of 2 of the new cranes that we've purchased from the Port of Georgia in Savannah. It's 273 feet tall. It'll be able to snatch containers out of those ships, again, between the 2 of them at a rate of about 30 an hour.
We sent a couple of our guys to go and get on the simulators. They weren't very good at it, and so there's there's a lot of training. Apparently, if you drop those on cars, it's not a good thing. So, well, it's a beautiful spot. I don't know how much you guys know about the port, and I know you're not as comfortable with it as, say, Jerry or I, and Christy Hartnett, who's our engineer, is with us here as well. She's done a lot of work on this, but this is Cargo 5-6. And if you can imagine being able to take advantage of that incredible growth, it's got a great potential for us. Now, the supply chain there is pretty obvious. It's the ocean transit piece all the way to the distribution centers. And increasing the cargo opportunities and capacity here allows us to have this ripple effect on the community. Instead of produce, which it does right now, goes all the way, passes us, goes up the northern coast, up the eastern coast to the northern seaboard, and actually drops off in ports like Baltimore and New York, and then gets trucked back down to Central Florida. We're 3 miles off the shipping lanes here, a quick in and out. When we're set and ready to go, that supply chain will skip a lot of these other pieces and come directly here to service the whole southeastern U.S. Part of that, to make that more viable, is to have a connectivity to rail for bulk and for refrigerated containers as well. We've got 3 areas that we currently move a lot of our bulk from, and what we want to do, and there's 2 long-range plans. One of them's a little shorter than longer, and that is to be able to access and unload that bulk cargo and run it down the barge canal, which was made for barges, and it'll be on barges, and then run up. The next phase would be to run it up here to Titusville, and use the berth that's there. The second phase, in longer term, is to create a real rail line that runs straight across and hooks up into Merritt Island across, and then goes up to the railhead at the CSX. So you go directly. The idea is to go directly off the ship into the rail yard. Really important in terms of getting the bulk off the roads and onto the rail terminals for distribution through the southeast. The third level of the third stream of revenue stream that we have is in the leasing and retail areas. We are currently working on our opening the Welcome Center. We're fighting to get a great name for it, and I think we're almost down to it. We've had a lot of input, had a lot of help on that, actually, a lot of help. Good or bad, just a lot of help on naming that Welcome Center, but the chances are that it's real good. We're on time and budget to be open in the first week of November. This port, 7-8 cruise ship berths are coming sooner than you think, and when those cruise ships, as we move to the forward, we've got to be in a position to handle those cruise ships. The first one is already scheduled in late November and our early 2015. Customers want a better way to use their cargo and get their cargo here efficiently. Again, we're only 3 miles out. We're a quick turn in to get everything off here. Refrigerated containers are the way of the world. And we're going to need some support on this. This slide looked really good on my computer here. It's a little bit faded, but here's what we need. I mean, we're going to be a big old economic engine out of there. There's no doubt about it. You know, as other industries slow down, this one is going to really pick up, and I think you'll be very proud of what we have at the port. But we need highway infrastructure to support it, and for us, that's expanding the lanes on 528 to give us that opportunity to get that intermodal piece, not only off the rail, but also on the road, because there's some stuff that's going to be delivered to Florida that doesn't need to get on a rail line. We would also like to look at the bridges over the river to accommodate that, so we don't have to lift up and down the drawbridge right now from the northern side to get us to 528. And a part of that would be a fixed bridge over the barge canal as well. Light rail connectivity from the airport, that'd be fantastic. I think we all have a vision to see one day people getting off their planes, and it's a fly-in, drive-in cruise industry here. Not so much fly-in as Miami would be, but still there's a real need for people to be able to get off their plane and get on the port. Both be great at Melbourne and IOA. We talked a little bit about the spur for FEC. That's the Florida rail line, and all aboard Florida COCO routes need to be pursued as well. So that's our growth for the future. Our look at the future really is expand the cruise business and be #1 in the world, because if you're number one in the country, you're number one in Florida, you're going to be number one in the world in terms of cruise ship capacity. And then cargo with strategic plans with those assets, we have to invest that to make that work. You didn't even give me a warning. And as I said before, thanks to the commission and the group that's been here previous to me, there's a really good solid financial condition and a great business model moving forward. We're going to be a little aggressive on this, but it's time to be that way and make sure that we're set for the future. Deepwater Port, I'll go keep going through the diverse manufacturing. Thank you very much.
John Picard will represent the city of Cape Canaveral.
Thank you. John Pekar, city engineer. Good morning. Cape Canaveral was founded in actually 1963. We just celebrated our 50th year. We have 2.3 square miles in the community with a little less than 10,000 residents. Actually, we were home to the Space Center for several years, but in 2009 we started a visioning program. We went through 6 major workshops, which some of you have attended, to get a feel for where we wanted to go and what we were going to do. And the residents and the result of that meeting showed that they wanted to have raising the bar throughout the community. They wanted to have an upscale community. They wanted tree-lined streets, complete streets that involved walkable, bikeable type connections. They wanted to have a professional base that would service some of the things we're talking about today, both at the port and at the Space Center. And then they wanted some other amenities that would upgrade both with restaurants and professional buildings. The city has taken that to heart, and we've started a very ambitious program. Some of the key developments, we're starting a $2 million fire station this month. We're designing a new city hall that's going to hopefully start next year. We're working on upgrading our facilities. Our wastewater treatment plant is going under much needed improvements. We're working with our parks, and we're working with our street systems that support all of these areas. Particularly, we have 4 major complete streets on the docket. The first was Ridgewood, which we've completed. That has pedways, walkways, it has solar lighting. It's similar to what you see on the screen now. This is actually a second project with the help of the TPO, which should start next year, and this is North Atlantic. And this is important because this is tying to the port, the new cruise terminal. This will provide access to the Cove area and beach streets, and these partnerships are extremely important. We also are working, as John Moore talked about, with A1A. That's another of our complete streets coming to the city, and that's also going to be helping the whole Barrier Island. We have another street, Central, that's tied to some future growth and hopefully with assisted living, things which we are hoping to come along. On North Atlantic, which you see here, again, our complete streets look at wide pedways. This one will have a 10-foot pedway on the west side. It will have walkways, sidewalks on the east side. We're looking at bioswales, exfiltration, all the partnerships we can help get with grant money that helps us with the drainage systems. We'll be looking at solar lighting. We have about 37 intersections, driveways and intersections on this road, so there's be a lot of planning. The plans are complete, and this project, like you said, should start next year. Some of the challenges the city does have are what we all have. We have actually changing growth patterns, demographics. We have an aging population in the city. We're looking at some of the tourists, the impacts that come out of the port especially. Of course, the whole Barrier Island's looking at that. You've heard talk of going from 3.5 million annually up to over 8 million tourists that will be coming in. And with the Cove and some of the other amenities that are being planned, I think the whole Barrier Island is preparing for that, and what they can do to help connectivity and keeping some of the people here. We're looking at some of the changing regulations. Being on the lagoon, drainage is a key part of that. You've all been reading about the problems with the lagoon and seagrasses. So that ties in not only with the drainage systems, but how the transportation systems are built. And that's another key area that we're trying to keep water on site and treat it properly. And finally, we're looking for partnerships across the board with all kinds of grants. We're looking at associations. We're looking at groups such as the TPO and others that help us proceed. So that's where we are, and we're very excited about it because there's an awful lot happening here in Brevard County.
Bob Torres, Cocoa Beach.
Good morning. My name is Bob Torres. I'm the Public Works Director in the City of Cocoa Beach. With me today is Cocoa Beach Mayor Dave Netterstrom and Commissioner Adrienne Dillon. And I want to thank you for hosting this symposium and allowing the City of Cocoa Beach to share its vision, priorities, and goals and objectives for making the City of Cocoa Beach a better place to live, work, and play. The city's vision for future transportation projects includes multimodal improvements to our roadways by enhancing our pedestrian, bicycle, and transit facilities by encouraging means of transportation other than the automobile. As shown on this slide, we've been working with Space Coast Area Transit, and we have been installing transit shelters. Also next year, the Florida Department of Transportation will be constructing sections of 8-foot concrete path along the east side of A1A, which, when completed, will fill in all the sidewalk gaps along the east side of A1A in Cocoa Beach. Included with our vision for complete streets with respect to transportation enhancements, the city is also working to incorporate low-impact stormwater designs. This slide represents an example of our vision for transportation systems using before and after photos of Ocean Beach Boulevard. Enhancements include signed and marked pedestrian crosswalks, marked bike lanes, landscape medians, and what you don't see is underground perforated concrete stormwater pipe, which allows for the exfiltration of stormwater to keep it on site instead of discharging to the river. This is another slide of Ocean Beach Boulevard, and here we have widened the medians. We've narrowed the travel lanes, another before and after photo. Again, we've widened the medians, we've narrowed the travel lanes, we've added bike lanes and sidewalks, and incorporated a bioretention system in the roadway medians that you see in the bottom photo. This slide represents the evolution of our vision for transportation in Cocoa Beach. We're currently taking our signature street, Minutemen Causeway, and we are proposing wide multi-use pathways, which also allow for other enhancements such as benches and on-street dining, transit stops, traffic calming such as bulb outs, narrow travel lanes, and medians to help slow down traffic and promote pedestrian safety, and low-impact stormwater improvements such as urban planters to reduce runoff pollution near the source. Also, the State Road A corridor study is currently underway, which is taking the complete street ideas and concepts from the Minutemen Causeway project and expanding upon them. Proposed improvements include enhanced pedestrian facilities, traffic calming, on-street parking, as well as dedicated bike lanes. As part of the A1A corridor study, the consultant is also looking at tightening the State Road A1A 520 intersection and making it smaller. As the most congested intersection in the city, improvements are greatly needed, which will benefit both pedestrians and vehicles. These two projects, the downtown A1A roadway reconstruction and the 520 intersection, are key priorities for the city's vision for our future transportation needs. The city wishes to continue to support these and other projects that result from the A1A corridor study. This final slide shows some of the city's goals and objectives, including, this final slide, including revitalizing our downtown. The photos on the right are taken from the city's adopted downtown standards, design standards manual, which will give us a vision and direction. Also shown is a rendering of our proposed fire station. It will be built in the downtown next to City Hall, across the street from the existing fire station. The project is currently being bid for construction. With our commitment to both Minuteman Causeway and the fire station, the city is making improvements in itself in order to help spur redevelopment. In addition to the above, the city is currently in the process of selecting a firm for the State Road 520 sector plan. And lastly, the city is updating its comprehensive plan to promote growth and redevelopment in order to revitalize our downtown and make Cocoa Beach an even better place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Courtney Barker, City of Satellite Beach.
Thank you very much. Satellite Beach, we are a little community, about 10,000 people. A lot of you know where we are at, and some of you probably live there because we are a very beautiful city. But we have about 10,000 people, which is slightly more than the new cruise ship that's coming into Port Canaveral. But one thing about Satellite is we are a beachfront community. So when we, on the weekends and every day of the week, we have people from all over the county and all over the state of Florida that come to our beaches, which add pressure to our roadway system as well as our sidewalks and so on. And we've done a lot of projects on our beach accesses and our parks. If you haven't heard, we have a community redevelopment area, and that agency has done a number of big projects on our parks. We've invested a significant amount of money in our major park areas. This is Hightower as well as Pelican Beach. And we've been actually nationally recognized for this park, which is Hightower. And we have basically, because of these projects, a greater need for pedestrian access, both across the streets, across A1A, as well as parking pressures on all of our beach accesses on the weekend. A lot of people would ask us, why do you invest all of these parks for, your tour, for people that don't live in your community? And really, it's our businesses. Our businesses are rocking on the weekends. And, if you've ever had to try to go to Con Diego's on a Saturday, you will wait in line for a long time from 11 o'clock all the way up to 6 o'clock. And the same can be said about Little Dose, which, if you go to dinner there and have to park a block away to get there, that's pretty much standard. So we have all of those issues coming to a forefront with both a need for shared parking, a need for stormwater. All of us are facing the TMDL issue, as well as general aesthetic improvements along our A1A corridor. We also have a big redevelopment opportunities, and if you live in Satellite Beach, you know what the 100 acres is. And this is the old south housing of the Patrick Air Force Base, which has been, I would say, maybe a third developed so far. One part was developed as base housing, and then we had the Montecito development, and now we have two sectors which are very large. We have the 100 acres, which is actually a cleared area, and then we have another remnant of the base housing, which is being run as a rental area that's also ready for redevelopment. And this area has been approved for a PUD residential development. It never went forward, as many planned residential developments back in 2008 went forward or did not go forward. But now we have the opportunity, and it's very encouraging as a planner, to hear from my city council. They want to see a mixed use. The community members want to see hotel uses, things like that. So we're looking at revamping what can go in this area. As a city manager, I'm excited that we may be able to reduce the millage rate when it's developed. But this is going to be a kind of a new added pressure to our corridors, to our beach accesses, and actually a great new opportunity to look at new stormwater areas, new shared parking, and so on. So to get a handle on all this, we applied for a grant with the DOE. We received that grant. Currently, we are going forward with the large study of A1A. And we're going kind of beyond the pretty pictures. It was very important for my city council not to do a plan that had the pretty pictures, even though we all love the pretty pictures. But we wanted to make it an engineered concept plan so that the community redevelopment area in the city and our stormwater utility can use that as a roadmap for the A1A corridor for years to come. So we have, this is an engineering firm is helping us with this. We're starting the public hearings coming up. Our first one is on October 24th. And I have some flyers with me, so if anyone lives in Satellite Beach and would like to go, you're welcome. If you are just interested in transportation like I am and want to go to other people's public workshops, you're welcome to also attend. But this plan is going to be looking at access management. I know that's difficult for businesses to hear, but we do need to start looking at kind of trying to close some curb cuts, looking at our pedestrian needs, stormwater, parking, and then also addressing some of our non-conforming lots and expanding our business opportunities. I know that if you weren't impressed with Cocoa Beach's presentation, I was. We've actually attended some of their A1A workshop meetings and using them as kind of like a model and looking to see what they're doing. But as you can see, their complete streets are really rocking it. And we want to do the same thing in our community. So we will be looking at the complete streets policies and so on. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Todd Corwin, City of Melbourne.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Todd Corwin, and I'm a planner with the City of Melbourne. I'll start my presentation with a map. As a planner, you might expect a planner would, but with the map here, it's our future land use map, and it's important for multiple reasons. When the city updated its comprehensive plan several years ago, one of the things that was looked at was how could we encourage development in the urban core areas of the city. Melbourne's a little unique. It was created by a merger of two cities back in 1969, City of O'Galley, City of Melbourne. So the city actually has two downtowns. And in addition to those two downtowns, which are in community redevelopment areas, we also have an additional community redevelopment area for 3 total. The future land use map encourages higher densities and intensities in the CRAs to create urban form and urban landscapes, which hopefully will be walkable and create a variety of housing opportunities as well as economic opportunities. Here's some conceptual drawings of the urban form we hope to achieve by the increased densities and intensities encouraged by the comprehensive plan. Oops. We have things that you would like in an urban landscape, walkable neighborhoods. With this, I would like to touch on an ordinance that the city recently adopted. It's a mobility ordinance. The city adopted a mobility plan several years ago and has recently implemented that. What this mobility plan accomplishes is that it requires developers to either create mobility improvements, which can be anything pedestrian, transit, or vehicular improvements, or make a payment in lieu of providing those improvements. So as this mobility plan goes forward, we're hoping to be able to increase the pedestrian and vehicular connectivity and facilities within the city. There are approximately five districts, and they encompass about 65% of the city. Open space is another part of the urban landscape, and I'll touch on that later. We have a green belt out west that we've recently formed. Mixed use, of course, as you encourage increased densities and intensities, you hope that you get mixed use districts. And we actually have a mixed use land use, which allows increased FAR and densities in downtown core areas to achieve this type of design. A range of housing choices, again, with the CRAs and the mixture of densities and intensities. We hope to provide a range of housing choices, both downtown and elsewhere in the city. And multimodal transportation. The city has plans for a rail station next to City Hall downtown. There are multiple streetscape projects planned in all 3 CRAs, which will have lighting improvements, sidewalk improvements, and pedestrian improvements. The city also has a complete street in the medical district in Hickory in Hickory Street, which will connect the downtown CRA as well as the Babcock CRA. So there will be a complete street in this particular area, hopefully with increased transit and walkability. This is a shot of downtown Eau Gallie, and as you can see, it's your typical downtown landscape. And in downtown Eau Gallie, our comprehensive plan allows 50 units per acre and a 3 FAR to encourage the urban development. Our C3 zoning district has 0 lot line setbacks so that we can encourage the urban form. Oops. This is downtown Melbourne, right at the point across the railroad tracks. This shows a public art donation, a gateway or focal point in the downtown. That is one of the objectives of the CRAs, is to encourage gateways and more focal points in the downtown area to attract visitors and business. And the last slide here shows the area west of I-95. In this particular area, the city has recently annexed over 2,000 acres. This 2,000 acres, vast majority of it will be designated as conservation, and that will be a green belt along Lake Washington, protect the city's water supply. And in conclusion, we also are working with our regional partners here to provide and acquire right-of-way for the Washingtonia extension, as well as provide wetland mitigation credits for the St. John Heritage Parkway. And as you can see, we hope to transform Melbourne and completely encourage the urban growth, and then also look for areas to provide conservation and greenbelt areas on the periphery. Thank you.
Rick Cloutier with Melbourne International Airport.
Melbourne International Airport is your multimodal hub in South Brevard. As we look at the slide up here in the right-hand corner that all the slides have had, and you see pedestrians and bicycles and cars and buses and planes, all of those are already happening now at Melbourne International Airport. You may not think about it, but in our industrial park, there's about 1,000 people a day that walk during their lunch times in and around the airport. So it is the way it is now, and it is going to be into the future. We see this growth as the airport growth is going to impact everything that's around South Brevard. You're seeing that now, the reasoning to having the Ellis Road interchange off of I-95. The growth areas that we see at the airport are going to be domestic passengers. We now have about 400,000 domestic passengers a year that come through the airport. We will triple that by 2040. We will have international passengers. We are working with both Customs and Border Patrol up at the Port Canaveral, where they're stationed at, and we have actually had to turn down 3 different international operators in the last 2 years. We expect that we will get flights from possibly Brazil, Russia, and Europe. The cargo operations, nobody thinks of Melbourne as a big airport that has a lot of big planes. We regularly have 747s that land at Melbourne Airport. We have C-5s, C-17s that do cargo operations on a frequent basis. We are putting this year about $15 million into our cargo facility and infrastructure, and we see in 2040 that's going to bring out dividends that will probably be tenfold of what we've got now. Cargo is going to be a big industry in Melbourne, and we see that as a connection between us and Port Canaveral. As we have heard earlier on the northern part of the county, the Space Center is a multimodal hub. Port Canaveral is a multimodal hub. Melbourne International Airport is a multimodal hub. These hubs are going to have interconnectivity by 2040. There is going to have to be connections between the rail facilities that the port is planning and the rail facilities that the airport is planning. General aviation, the airport is one of the busiest airports in North America. We are about the 50th busiest airport in North America in size of operations. So there is a lot of training operations that happen at the airport. We see that growing at least another 50% by 2040. And aviation and high-tech jobs. We've heard a lot about the cities and the roads that they need. Melbourne has about 8,000 high-tech jobs that come to the airport every day. And when you look at our map here, and this is our future land use map, it's only 2,400 acres. About 1,000 of those acres are runways, taxiways, things that can't be built on. But I'm not sure where that went to, but okay. Not sure why it's flipping, but we'll go with it. But there's 1,400 acres that we have these 8,000 jobs on. It's a small city. It's a city that has both the employment that comes into it, and it also has the passengers. We have the trucks that are coming to the airport every day. Freight is important, not just on the rail, not just on the cargo. We also have many of these businesses that truck their goods and their wares, and they need to use I-95 and US 1 kind of corridors. When you look at all the nice colors on there, and I know it's hard to read, those are all the future growths where we see future businesses to be. There will probably be about 16,000 to 20,000 jobs in 2040 is what we're estimating at. That's bigger than some of the small cities that we have around this county. And that's people that are coming to this area every day. Right now, there is 50,000 jobs within a 3-mile radius of the airport. That means there's 50,000 people that are riding to work or driving to work every day. If that triples in the next 25 years, that's 150,000. We are actually as big an employment center and a transportation center as around Orlando Airport when you're talking about jobs and that. So we see a lot of future growth. We're going to be busy, and we see a lot of interconnectivity with the rest of the county, Port Canaveral Space Center, etc. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Christy Fisher, City of West Melbourne.
Good morning. As Todd did, I'm going to start off with a map, and the reason planners like to start off with a map is to sort of show you where we're at, and then it says several things to us. Yeah, it's a strange looking green area that encompasses a weird shape, but on the other hand, as many of you all know, West Melbourne is sort of wedged in between the city of Melbourne and the city of Palm Bay, two huge partners there in the south part of the county. And with that, we have a few items that make us unique, make us sort of feel like we're part of both cities, and that's New Haven Avenue with its restaurants and its retail, so that becomes sort of an alley that, is important to the economic development in the south part of the county. When we did our comprehensive plan in 2010, one of the items that we added was a vision. So in terms of achieving that new community planning vision, and the photos sort of indicate to you that we have quite a bit of green area with the residential. That's a photo in the middle. And then Ellis Road, which Mr. Cloutier just touched on as being sort of important as a connection to the airport and other areas of the county. But that vision, the second bullet, was to provide the community an exceptional place to live, work, and play by instituting traditional planning practices and land development practices for new development. And why do we say that? We have over 19,000 residents. Our land uses are 70% residential, so you can see predominantly what we are. Do we have a lot of vacant land? No, but we're going to try to use that in a meaningful way and to integrate that with other development, and that's the last bullet that we had, and that was all from the comprehensive plan. What are some of our challenges? We're honest about that, and we say we have 4 challenges. Those images sort of indicate what a lot of planners know of. You have facilities near the residents, and you sort of have to go around the world in order to get to a school or a park or shopping or wherever it might be, versus the last image on the bottom, which indicates a more direct route. And that's really, what I believe is in the spirit of the TPO and the DOT in the future. The challenges in terms of West Melbourne is, who are we? We have no downtown. So we want to create a distinct community image and identity, and the city manager and city council has been supportive in trying to perhaps that second bullet, perhaps we can use some of the institutional uses that a lot of folks know for West Melbourne to create a gathering space, which is typically what happens with downtowns. And then the integrated development pattern, you know, we have a vision with several of our bigger developments to integrate some of the neighborhoods with surrounding public and commercial areas. And lastly, we all been talking about connectivity and transportation. It'd be great for the city to have more multimodal alternatives. What are some of our transportation goals? And this has been stated both in our comprehensive plan by our city council, by the citizens when they did the visioning. One is the bicycle and transportation network, and because of that, we did a study of the gaps throughout the city. And that second bullet under there tells you that most of those gaps aren't on city roads, which is why it's important to work as a team with the TPO, DOT, and Brevard County. And then the connection of business space, the retail office, all the employment. So that's that first bullet, is to try to encourage more than automobile travel to those destinations. And that photo in the bottom is New Haven Avenue, and many of you all are familiar with what that looks like when you're trying to do Christmas shopping, you know, through the holidays. So it'd be great to have a mix of commercial and residential uses and eventually get it to that point, because we have a community redevelopment area now, so we might be able to do some of that. Some of the key projects, I don't know how much really some of you all from the north part of the county know about that St. John's Heritage Parkway and the Ellis interchange. It would be huge. I mean, we're a little city. We have 2 interchanges. This would be a 3rd interchange. It'd be a very important business and alternative SIS connector. It would help us alleviate some of our congestion issues. So we're talking about roads. It's Minton Road, New Haven Avenue, John Rhodes Boulevard, which all impact the city of West Melbourne. And then New Haven Avenue, there was a study that was done about, there was sort of an ideal plan once upon a time of $90 million to be spent on widening. And then I talked a little bit about the community redevelopment area. Norfolk Parkway, we're hoping eventually that will connect out to St. John's Heritage Parkway and provide you know, more traffic alleviation to some of the issues we have. And the last bullet, Field of Dreams. What we're trying to do with that community core is sort of create some special needs communities and some things that are sort of niche for our area. So with that, I'll stop, but thank you.
Rick Hood, Town of Grant, Valkyria.
Good morning. A lot of you may not even know where Grant, Valkyria is. We are Brevard's newest town, incorporated in 2006, and we are just east of Palm Bay, south of Malabar. At one time there was some discussion of annexing into Malabar, but when they figured Malabar and Valkyria and came up with malaria, they didn't. So instead they went down south and they picked up on Grant. If you've been to the Valkyria Airport, the Habitat Golf Course, the Grant Seafood Festival, then you've been to Grant, Valkyria. We are a very small rural community. We're 28 square miles, but we only have a population of 3,900. We do not have a road capacity problem, but what we do have is a problem in getting people around town. We have like I say, a rural community. We want to have a community where you can walk, you can use your golf cart, you can ride your horse, you can ride your bicycles. We have a lot of people come to town to do just that, and we want to improve on that. What we would like to look like in the next 20 years from now, is we would like to look the same as we are today, except we would like to have a few additional amenities. We would like our main east-west corridors going through town, Grant Road and Valkyria Road. They connect out to Babcock and US 1. We would like to see those receive a functional classification that we can become eligible to receive some federal money, because they are connecting, you know, 2 state roads. They are becoming more and more a cut-through, a collector. As Palm Bay grows, traffic will grow. We also would like to see we have an existing bike path on a portion of Valkyria Road, and we'd like to see that extended out to Babcock. And we would like to explore the full length of Grant Road. Today we have a lot of bicycle clubs coming to town because of our low traffic volumes and the rural nature, and they're driving around. We would like them to have a safe place. We have a lot of residents walking. Every road in Grant Valkyria except Grant Road, Valkyria, Babcock, and US 1, you can ride your golf cart on. They passed an ordinance over a year ago. We have not had any incidents, no problems, and the residents love it. They register their carts, and so we're trying to include all methods of transportation. We have a lot of horse farms in town, a lot of people that come in and ride. One issue we would like, that we want to see happen, it's a county roadway, Babcock. It's in dire need of resurfacing today. It's in dire need of 4-laning in the future, or between today and the future, maybe some intersectional improvements. We would like to see, go forward with a realignment of Valkyria and Wyoming with Palm Bay. The intersection is getting more and more use. It's getting more and more dangerous. So we'd like to see that improvement made. Our town will never have the clout of Palm Bay, Titusville, Melbourne. We'll never have the population base, but we want to be a partner in the transportation arena. We want to work with Palm Bay. We want to work with Brevard County and be a partner in all of that. We know that, traffic, just like water, it knows no boundaries. It's going to take the shortest, the most direct route, and if that's through town, that's fine, but we want to be able to accommodate that. Next year, we are going to be spending $250,000 on road resurfacing. The council has committed to spend an additional $100,000 a year minimum, and we're hoping that we can, obtain grants and so forth for bicycle and pedestrian plans. We are in the process of adopting a bicycle pedestrian group, Trails and Greenways group, to assist us in that, and we're hoping that they'll be able to push on the Owl Tuttle Trail that'll come through town. Come down and see us. It's a wonderful crown jewel. Thank you.
Sue Hand, City of Palm Bay.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. My friend Rick from Grant Valkyria said we'd like to look the same. Well, I can tell you with certainty that Palm Bay is going to look very different in the next 40 years. And I did my math wrong. The next 20, 30 years, however many years, we're going to look different. We're going to look different next year. So a lot of things going on in Palm Bay right now. Very exciting time in the city. Oh gosh, you found a map. Thank you so much. I was going to tell you that I had trouble with the whole mapping thing because we are so big, we can't really get it on the screen in one piece. We are 100 square miles. And we have over 100,000 people living in Palm Bay. We anticipate somewhere on the order of magnitude of about 250,000 people living in Palm Bay. We are the second largest city in Central Florida. So we're a big part of the economic engine that is Brevard County and that is Central Florida. And I think it's important to understand that transportation and economic development are very much linked. And so if you look at all the great economic development news that we've been seeing lately in Palm Bay, in South Brevard, in Brevard County, you can see that we have a lot more jobs coming in and we're going to have a lot more people coming in. And a lot of those people are going to live in Palm Bay. And so we're going to have to be ready for all of that and understand the transportation implications that all of the good economic development work that's been going on is going to have for not only Palm Bay, but for all of our communities. And I appreciate Rick's comment about collaboration, because I believe that is the only way that we're going to have a great transportation system here in Brevard, is if we work together. Babcock Street's a great example. That's a facility in Palm Bay. It's a county road. It runs through Grant-Valcaria. It runs through the town of Malabar. It hits the city of Melbourne. We can't do that by ourselves. We must figure out how to work together, and that applies to so many of our transportation facilities, not only roads, transit, our bicycle and pedestrian facilities. All of those are important for us to work together. But let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in Palm Bay. As Christy mentioned, the Parkway is under construction from Malabar Road northwest to Emerson, and that's a big thing, because that's the first leg of about an 18-mile project that has potential to become even bigger, going north and extending up into Vieira for Brevard County. And we anticipate in Palm Bay that will open up a whole nother area of the city for residential, but also non-residential land uses, mixed use development that will allow our residents to have an alternative to getting on Palm Bay Road and heading east in the morning and west in the evening. And that's really what we're about in terms of our land use planning. And Christy did a great presentation. Could have put Palm Bay on most of those slides, because the principles that she's talking about really apply in our community and many other communities as well. We've got to have alternatives for transportation, and we've got to be smarter about our land use patterns. And in Palm Bay, that is exactly what we're trying to do. We have great opportunities in the northwest with the Parkway development. We have additional great opportunities in the southeast area of the city, that kind of quirky little piece that's east of 95. There's a new interchange that is planned there and funded in the Florida DOT work program. So we will have an area that's approximately the size of the city of West Melbourne that is currently undeveloped to bring economic development to the city of Palm Bay and to South Brevard County. And we anticipate that to be a very strong mixed use development, so that we can provide both the transportation and the land uses that work together to bring jobs to our community and provide alternatives for our residents. I also want to mention, Christy mentioned your identity and your downtown, and we're struggling with the same issues here in Palm Bay. And our focus for our downtown area is in the US 1 corridor. We have a redevelopment district there, and if you've driven US 1 lately, it looks pretty awesome. We're very proud of that, and we are continuing to work towards, again, mixed-use development in the US 1 corridor, because we see that as an economic engine for us in the future. We're thinking about the future of Palm Bay and how our transportation system is going to work. And as I mentioned, collaboration is going to be the key. But think about the different types of transportation vehicles. Rick mentioned horses, golf carts. Think about segways. We have people in Palm Bay who have powered parachutes. We're looking at a whole network of canal trails, easement trails, ways to connect people and get them out of our cars. And I think we're all going to have to think about that, because we can't widen our way out of our transportation issues. So thank you, Diana, for letting me know when it's time to be quiet. And I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Georgiana Gillette, Space Coast TPO.
Good morning. Over the past year, the TPO has been involved in developing a bicycle pedestrian mobility plan. The TPO has always recognized the growing importance of bicycle and pedestrian accessibility to our sense of community and to our economic vitality. Next slide. We took an inventory of our existing sidewalks and our shared use paths. Then we identified the planned and programmed projects that were in the DOT work program or in each municipality's plan as well. This gave us a clear picture of where our gaps are. Next slide. We also took an inventory of our on-street bicycle lanes and shared use paths, and we identified those gaps as well. Then we identified our priority or critical corridors of regional significance, such as A1A, 520, A1A, US 1, and so on as you go further down south into the county. We also looked at our regionally significant projects, like the Florida East Coast Greenway, the Coast to Coast Connector, the St. Johns River to the Sea Loop Trail, the Eco Heritage Trail, and of course, public access to our beaches, which is A1A. This is our vision, to make those connections to community centers and activity nodes from a functional, recreational, and mixed mobility standpoint. This plan was adopted by our TPO in July, our TPO board, and we now have a list of priority projects to focus our financial resources. Well, keeping with the same theme of access for all users, I want to talk a little bit about Complete Streets. You've heard a lot about it today. Complete Streets are basically all of the things that was just on the prior screen. They've been called many things, and they're different things to different users. Here are some images that come to mind when you think of all users. Complete Streets cater to all modes, walking, biking, driving, and transit. Users range from those of the very young to the very old, and with various physical abilities as well. Complete Streets are also successful main streets, business addresses, neighborhood streets, and great streets along park spaces. These streets successfully support land uses. They are serving by providing multimodal access and bringing users to the land use. The TPO developed, along with our consultant, an evaluation and screening tool to identify our 6 Complete Street projects, and you've heard a lot about those today. And we have selected projects in the north, central, and southern part of the county. The TPO also set aside $18 million over a 3-year period to help fund these projects, and we want these to be showcase projects. We want these to be really fantastic for the community. We've worked very closely with the DOT as well as each one of the municipalities, and they have also committed to providing some match as well. And then I'd like to end the presentation with a couple of images. This is of the same street. If you were standing in place and turned around and looked in one direction and then the other. It's in different municipalities, and they have very different policies, as you can see. So we can truly make a difference through strong local planning and great partnerships. Thank you.
Jim Liesenfeld, Space Coast Area Transit.
Good morning. In the transit world, it's not good to run early, so I'm going to talk for like 25 minutes to get us back on time. So, see, there was a joke better than the malaria joke. I couldn't top that. I'm just going to give you a little bit of what's background, current, some of our dream, and then some of the immediate challenges we're facing just to be able to reach the dream. Brevard County, Space Coast Area Transit, part of Brevard County. We provide fixed route service, paratransit, which is door-to-door service, and van pool services. There's some numbers for you for our budget. That's not up on the slide. We contract out about 40% of our budget to the private sector to provide services for us and for the citizens. And actually, when I say last year, it's actually now year-old stats. Those are fiscal year 12 stats. We provide about 2.6 million passenger trips. That's every time somebody boards a vehicle. And just over 2 million of that was fixed routes. Our fiscal year just ended in September, so our fixed route number is about 2.2 million trips. So we're expecting this year's number to be somewhere around 2.8 to 2.9 million for our entire system. We provide 23 fixed route buses and 29 paratransit buses that are on the road every day. Our van pool program has anywhere from 80 to 90 vehicles on the road for a day. Our fixed route ridership has doubled in the last 5 years, and actually, as of Monday, it has now gone up 123% in the last 6 years. So the demand has just basically shot through the roof. We look at a number of different benchmarks, and if you look at total demand and number of boardings per hour of service we provide, we have a higher demand rate than you find in many cities, including like the cities of Cincinnati, city of Charlotte, a few cities in Connecticut. When you think of these as old-time bus-intensive cities, we're actually ahead of what they are in terms of the amount of service we do and the amount of trips we produce per hour. And we've always been there. We're the 45th largest transit system in the paratransit system in the nation. There's 600 to 700 paratransit systems. We've been in the top 50 for the last 20, 25 years. That's how we got started. Keep forgetting, hit the sidebar there. Just a little idea. I want to talk to you about I'm focusing on the fixed route. It's a network. There's now actually 1,100 bus stops throughout the county. When you take a look at it, that means there's a million different ways you could ride our system, getting on and getting off. And we have to pay attention. We have to accommodate the million different ways. If you look at us, another analogy I like to use, if you looked at us as an airline, if you looked at the time a bus goes to one spot and comes back, we have to provide about 325 flights a day. If you're familiar with AirTran Airlines that just got merged in the Southwest, that's about the same size as AirTran Airlines. And there's nothing more annoying than missing your connection at the Atlanta airport. We have to make 350 connections a day in terms of time transfers to make sure we get people going from back and forth. And then last but not least, in the bus riding world, it's still a cash society. Over 70% of our fares are still by cash basis. In terms of interactions that our bus drivers have with our passengers every day dealing with fares, that's the equivalent of everyone going to the Super and Walmart down here at Viera. So that's how many cash handling we have to deal with on a simple day. Near term, we actually have additional service. A week from Monday, Rockledge and Viera is going to have a route that's basically the Morrell Road corridor, connects up with the Walmart over here just down the street. That was a grant through DOT, and the county's funded the other half, so that will start up this October 14th. In our new budget, we do have funds available for 5 more driver/bus routes. And you can see, they're not in the list of priorities in terms of the top priority, there's number orders, but we have 5 routes that we're having major issue with. If you look at the Titusville to Cocoa route, in the evening, there's times we have to add a second bus as our last bus of the day. We have our operations supervisors out there telling you, if you're going to Titusville, get on this bus. If you're going to Port St. John, get on that bus. And we send 2 buses up the road because there's not enough room on the bus, just have 1 bus. Cocoa to Cocoa Beach in the evening. In the transit world, you have what's known as deadhead service, buses coming in, out of service. We sneak an extra bus on Route 4 every day just to deal with the rides to keep our Route 4 on time. And they're literally driving from stop to stop saying, get on the bus, we're going to get you to Cocoa. We do that occasionally at Cocoa Rockledge. And then we also have other issues with Palm Bay to Melbourne. That's a connection route that's generally full all the time. And right now we have 2 buses in the city of Palm Bay. It just isn't working well enough. We got to add a 3rd bus. So those are our priority areas in the next year to add service. And in addition, when your license tag fees doubled in the last couple of years, some of that money came to us. It's just now showing up, so we'll provide some more paratransit. Long term, we had to do a transit development plan required by the state. 30 seconds. There's the map. The blue is what the current and the green is the new. And it shows you we looked at a number of different things. And surprisingly, Grissom Road and connectors for BCC ended up being quite desirable, something we'll need to look at. I won't cover bus shelters. The cities have done it all. KFC has changed how we do our van pools. Lake Nona is now becoming more interesting. And dialysis is actually becoming a major function. If you're not aware of dialysis service, that has a number of servers in the county has tripled last year. This slide I'm stealing from MPO. This shows our ridership versus vehicle miles traveled. But I got to tell you, our immediate issue is just meeting the demands we have. Our buses are getting too crowded. And what happens when your buses get too crowded? You can't keep them on time. We asked our people last year, what are the reasons you're riding the bus? Top 2 are home to work and work to home. The 5th most common reason people ride the bus is going from one job to the other job. And so for us to make sure we get people back and forth to work, we've got to keep our buses on time. We've got to give them schedules that we can meet. Right now, we're not meeting them. Without our additional buses, we will start looking in the next year of, instead of a bus once every hour, and I can tell you a bus once an hour is not good enough, that bus will become once every 70 minutes. The buses that are every 30 minutes become 1 bus every 40 minutes. That's not good enough. Imagine adding 20 minutes to your commute every single day when you're trying to get back and forth, or 40 minutes when you're trying to go from one job to the next job. Adding to your day, you lose an hour a day. So we have to focus on providing more service out there just so we can have time schedules to meet everybody. We're a bit of a victim of our success. The last thing I just want to point out is I love modeling. We did some modeling. The ridership projections in 2018, we're going to top them this year. So we're already ahead of what our own plan says we should be 5 years down the road. We're already trying to do it, and we're trying to meet it. That's it. Thanks, Diana.
Rusty Roberts with All Aboard Florida.
Good morning.
Just walked in the door, so I've missed a bunch of your presentations this morning, but I'm glad to be here to talk to you about, they told me I had 10 minutes. I'm here to talk to you about a 235-mile intercity passenger rail, and I usually do about 1 minute a mile. So sit back and relax. So I am here to talk about a 235-mile intercity passenger rail system that's being started up. Where's my control button? Okay, here we go.
Spacebar.
Thank you, spacebar. So that's going from Miami to Orlando. Most of you probably heard about it. Florida East Coast Industries sponsoring this privately funded train. It will be totally privately funded, no operating expenses from any government entities being requested, no capital expenses being requested from any government entity. All private financing, private operation. So did I get that about no tax money being going to the system? So at any rate, we're really excited. You know, Florida East Coast, everybody knows about the Florida East Coast Railroad. I'm going to go, since I have a lot of slides and more than I have minutes, I'm going to kind of fly through a couple of things at high speed rate. Everybody knows about this train, Henry Flagler. If you live in this coast, you should know about Henry Flagler. His legacy, he basically built the east coast of Florida. Is this moving all by itself? It is.
It looks like it has timing.
Terrific. I'll have to I don't know how that happened, but maybe this knows that I have to go fast. So, you know, he built this train to Key West. I started with this company just 7 months ago, by the way. I'm going to have to do this. And I was excited. I said, great, we're going to build this train to Key West. They said, no, you dummy, we're going to go to Orlando. And so that's what we're doing. And we're going to do it in under 3 hours. How are we going to do that? I know the questions y'all want to ask. How are we going to do that? We're going to stop only in Fort Lauderdale and only in West Palm Beach, and then we're going to go to Orlando. And that's how we do a 3 hour, just slightly under a 3 hour ride. Why are we doing that? Because this is a privately funded system that is designed to make a profit. And so when we studied our system, we decided that the only way, the maximum optimal system that we could operate is this route right here. This is where most of the ridership is. We did a survey, an investment grade survey. They found about 50 million trips go between South Florida and Central Florida every year. We need to capture about 5, 6, 7% of that, and we can probably be a profit-making situation. And so we call this the trunk of the system, and that means something here in Brevard County. As I said, a 3 hour travel time. Why can we do it so cheaply? We're going to spend about $1.5 billion to build this, maybe 1.8, and that doesn't include the rolling stock we have to purchase, which is about 10 train sets at about $400 million cost. We're going to be using diesel train sets. They'll be made in America. Again, why can we do it so cheaply? We own the corridor. We own this corridor fee simple, so it's not. There's no mortgage on it, and we don't have to buy right away, except for the little bit of right away we purchased to move into Orlando. When we looked at the system, we said, well, who's going to ride this train? And you can see by this chart, we have about 70% of the people will be leisure travelers, personal travelers. A lot of folks coming from South Florida, actually, I think up to this coast here, and coming in from Latin America and other places. And then about maybe 26 here, 30% business travelers. I think we're going to get more business travel than our surveys showed on this train. And that's going the wrong direction. Let's try this way. I talk about a passenger train, but it's not really a passenger train in the true sense of like a commuter rail like they're going to see in Central Florida with the Sun Rail or the Tri-Rail in South Florida. We want this to be a travel, leisure, and entertainment experience. The top brass that we've hired to run this train are from Disney. We have 2 co-presidents. Both of them are from Disney. One ran the Disney Hotel, opened Disney Tokyo in Hong Kong, ran the hotels in Paris, ran the hotels in Orlando. The other guy built the Disney hotels. These are 2 co-presidents. One's for development of our stations and our system, and the other one's for operations. And what's going to be really cool for those who've been around a long time watching high-speed rail projects, we tried it in the 90s with something called the Fox train, which would go from Miami to Orlando, kind of following the turnpike. The riders aren't on the turnpike. They're along the coast. And so one of the reasons why we think this will be successful and why the market is now here for the return of intercity rail, since 1968, by the way, passenger rail was the last time ran on the FEC tracks, is the fact that our stations are in the middle of the cities. For instance, down here in Miami, we're right downtown. That's the little red trapezoid there is Henry Flagler's land. That's where his station was in 1895. We have about 9 acres there, and it connects intermodal with the Metro Rail.
which is along a corridor that FEC Railroad sold to Miami-Dade County in 1985, the corridor that went to Key West. His downtown station was there, and we still own the land. It's basically parking lots now. It's been parking lots since for decades, and it serves the government center and some of the other courthouses and things like that. So we're going to build about 3 million square feet of space here. We're going to have a 70-story super tower. We're going to have a hotel. We're going to have another smaller tower. That's right, 70 stories, and another smaller tower. Not all at the same time. This will happen as the market demands. But this is another reason why we think this is a good business decision, because our Florida East Coast Industries owns a development company. We are a development company besides a rail infrastructure company. And so this is, again, a development opportunity. Right next to the old Miami Arena there, which has moved out, and the guy who owns that land is going to build a 1,800-room hotel and a 500,000 square foot convention center down there because of what we're doing. So we're excited about that. Kind of a 3D view of our station location in downtown Miami is pretty cool. And then downtown Fort Lauderdale, we're going to intermodal with their streetcar they're building, which is called the Wave. The Orange Line is our corridor. The Brevard Transit Station is there. It says bus station. We own all the property around that station. We've acquired that property. Even in the state office building, we're negotiating to move them out, tear that building down, and build them a new one so we could have that. That's an obsolete building they'd like to move out anyway. We're downtown West Palm Beach here, same situation. We are, oops, I know you guys want to look at that screen. We are downtown intermodal with the downtown trolley, and to the left is the blue line, the Tri-Rail. That's their commuter rail. We're going to be connecting with that just a couple of blocks. Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, about 1 million square feet when we get down to hotel, retail, office. Here we go to what I affectionately call the Cocoa Curve. That's what we call it in our company, the Cocoa Curve, where we leave our corridor right there at 528, and we move into the beach line. And you can see where we come around up there. That's all FDOT property. We actually have some rail spurs up there as well, and we will follow the beach line corridor all the way to Orlando. You see that little shaded area down just below that. That is property that we own, Florida East Coast owns. We actually will have to start moving a little bit off our rail a little bit so we can leave room for the other bypass of the freight trains that go into Jacksonville and head toward Orlando. There's sort of a higher up view. As you can see, we're going to the beach line. And we will stay along the beach line corridor all the way to Orlando Airport. To the south of the corridor, actually right around this area, around Cocoa, we'll be a little bit north, and we'll cross over the highway and head to Orlando, mostly along the southern side of the expressway. And that is a lease that we have with 2 leases. Florida DOT, we've signed that lease. We're paying them money every year to access that corridor, and then where it becomes the property of the Orange County Expressway Authority, we're paying them money, and we are approving that lease. The Orange County Expressway Board is approving that lease at 2 o'clock this afternoon in a meeting that I'll be running back for that. Yesterday, very exciting, we had a meeting at the Orlando Airport. The GOA Airport Authority passed our lease to access the Orlando Airport. So we come in from the north, right around Cimarron Boulevard there, and we come in past the North Terminal. It's interesting, that orange line by the North Terminal, this airport was built in the 1970, I think. They always plan for a railroad easement there. We're taking that easement, and it was always in the plans. And then we're going to where they're going to build a new south terminal and an intermodal facility, which includes our train station. Their south terminal always had plans for a high-speed rail station in it. They were obviously thinking of the old high-speed rail discussions, Tampa to Orlando and then down to Miami, that have been mostly publicly paid for. So we're getting that slot. We're leasing that slot from the airport. And that little light blue line in the bottom is where we would be connecting. That's the Sun Rail that comes into that's the commuter rail that will come in from the south to connect to Orlando Airport. The train station that they're going to build is intermodal in that it'll handle the All Aboard Florida train. It'll handle the Sun Rail train. It will also handle the automated people mover that they'll be building that goes from their current terminal to the new terminal they plan to build. Initially a 2,500 car parking garage, which will grow to 20,000 spaces eventually. A little kiss and ride there to the bottom where you drop off area to the station, and then you could go to the new terminal or to the old terminal. We're very excited about this unanimous vote by the Airport Authority yesterday, and we're going to start breaking ground in this system
before the end of the year. And most of that construction will happen in South Florida, because we already got our environmental permits to work from Miami to West Palm Beach. We got what's called a finding of no significant impact, and we are going to start construction there. We have to, where you see single track now in our corridor, you're going to see double tracks. We're going to double track the whole thing. It used to be double tracked originally when Flagler built it. We pulled it up when passenger rail was ended in '68. They pulled up one of the tracks running only freight, and we're going to put it back down. Some areas will have 3 tracks and this and that. So we got our assessment for the southern portion. We're in the middle of environmental process for the northern portion from West Palm to Orlando. We had 1 round of public input meetings in the summertime, and we're going to have another round of public input meetings in December, and we will have one in Brevard County. So you'll see the draft environmental impact statement, what we're going to do, and you can come and make comment and that kind of thing. And that is the last step before we get a record of decision from the Federal Railroad Administration to proceed. And we're going to do that. We've got a lot of our management in place. We got our master engineering firms in place. We have a lot of contracts on the street already for RFPs for people who want to do business with us and do some design build work. We're just about to announce who's going to build our trains. We're down to 2 companies. And then we're going to hire a third-party operator. So we're going to hire somebody that knows how to schedule trains. They're kind of like air traffic controllers for trains. People who know how to schedule train service are going to operate the system for us. So we're not going to do it because I think we'll bump into each other if we try that. I think hopefully I haven't used up more than my 10 minutes, Lee. So let me go back to Coco, because we're not having Q&A, so I'll just answer the question because I know you want to talk about that. So everybody says, well, what about other stops? When I'm in Fort Pierce, when I'm in any other part along the corridor where there's no station planned, why don't you have a stop here? Stewart, Vero Beach, Fort Pierce, Coco, Melbourne. So my answer to that is, again, we're running a private system here. We want to make sure it's successful. We're building the trunk of the system. What I've showed you is the trunk of the system, and that's what we need to get operating. We need to be successful before we can talk about additional stations and additional routing. So if we're successful, do we quit there? We're in business. No, I doubt that. We're a forward-thinking company. We're going to be looking at other opportunities if it makes business sense. If we go to Jacksonville, because we have a corridor that goes all the way to Jacksonville, we might look at that market. If we want to go to Tampa because they're already asking us to go to Tampa, that's a market we would want to look at. If you're going to Jacksonville, if you're going to Tampa, where might you put a station so people can switch? I'm going to quit right there, and happy to talk with anybody offline you want to talk about. Thank you very much.
John Denninghoff, Brevard County.
Well, good morning. They told me I had 10 minutes, but I see by my watch and the schedule that I really have a lot more time, and I probably will not use much of it. The one thing I did want to say is we've heard a lot about collaboration and partnerships, and I can tell you in my experience there's been a lot of that in the years that I've been working for Brevard County for almost 17 years now. It's a requirement in order to get things done, and it makes it much more pleasurable to get things done. So you speed it up, and you have a lot more fun along the way, and you accomplish at the end a lot more than you would have accomplished previously or by yourself. Our partners are frequently, and obviously, the Department of Transportation, the TPO, love working with their staff. We almost always have a city partner on almost every project we do, or at least one city partner, sometimes 2 or 3. So I just want to mention that and say that I appreciate that opportunity to collaborate. It's always productive, and it helps us do better, as I said. One thing that I'm going to focus on towards the end of my presentation is going to be on the resources that we have to accomplish the things that we want to do. But before I do that, I'm going to show you some of the things we're working on. Hopefully, there we go. First, I got this listed up there, the St. John's Heritage Parkway. You've heard a lot about that in several of the other presentations. It's a very major effort on the part of the county, and I'm going to be the only one that used a laser, I think. The county portion of it is here. All right. The county portion is right here. The city portion is there for what we call the northern portion of it. South of that, it goes down south all the way down to, Sue was talking about that down at the south interchange. That's a major project for us. We're hoping to be under construction on this portion south of 192 later this year, or next year, but hopefully that's a big effort for us. We're doing right-of-way acquisition for all of it. Second project is the interchange with I-95. The DOT is really heading that one up. It's been funded through right-of-way acquisition, but no construction money yet. Third one is, it's not highlighted on this map, but is the widening of Ellis Road. And then fourth, we've got the Washingtonia extension. And you've actually heard of all of those projects prior to today, so we have been coordinating. The idea here is, and Rick was bringing this up about the employment center that really surrounds the airport. It is a major destination on a daily basis for a large part of the population of Brevard County. And it is going to be a major economic driver, if you will, for much of our prosperity that the county is going to experience. And so these road corridors that you're seeing here are recognition or in recognition of that, and it's our effort to accommodate that and allow it to actually become the driver that it needs to be. The Ellis project, by the way, and the Washingtonia project are really in the planning stages, and we do not have right-of-way or construction money. The additional projects we've got, we're currently working on an overpass over the railroad for the Pineda Causeway extension that has been built out to I-95. But this is an effort to get us over the railroad so that when all these passengers are going up there, that we'll be able to not be too much of an obstruction for traffic, at least at that location. The Vieira Boulevard interchange is an effort that the Vieira Company is really pursuing as a part of their DRI. Major modification there, and then I've got the Barnes Boulevard widening project listed up there, which is from Morrell Road to Fisk Boulevard. We hope to have that one under construction early next year. So those are sort of our major projects that are pavement oriented, but I wanted to take a second and talk about our ITS initiative that we've really got underway. This is really the most economic way that we know to improve transportation and deal with congestion that we've got on our existing system. What we've shown here on that map is a representation of some of the fiber cable that is in the ground and that eventually will be a major part of the ITS system. In some cases, they are actually already in it. We started the ITS transportation system with one corridor about 5 miles long on Wickham Road. It started on the south end at Sarno Road, extended up to the Pineda Causeway. And that was just 5 miles. It's now grown as of last year or early this year, it expanded up to almost 40 miles. And so I think we started with 13 traffic signals on the system, and it's gone up to 114 now. So we didn't show the whole county there, but there's lots in the south end there. So I wanted to take a second and go over the Wickham Road corridor analysis that we had performed. We did a pre-study, if you will, before we did the ITS on that, just to see what we were getting for the investment that the public was making in that road corridor. And then we did a post-installation study just to see how well it was working. And it's working better today than it was when we first did that study. But as you can see from there, the amount of the savings for the public is really dramatic. We like to talk about it saving time. We like to talk about it saving money. But I also like to talk about that it reduces crashes because traffic signals You know, the dirty little secret about traffic signals is that you get an increase in rear-end collisions. You eliminate other types of more severe collisions, but you do get more rear-end collisions. Well, you get those because people are stopping, and they sort of make sense. If you have fewer stops because your signal system is working better, then you eliminate those rear-end collisions, or reduce them, I should say. We did financial analysis. I'm going to skip down to the last bullet there, and just the analysis that we did there indicates that the folks on an annual basis save the cash out of their pocket. They save $70 a year. The cash out of their pocket that goes to paying into the gas taxes, well, that they were spending on there, was only $28 a year. So so you can see that we're actually putting more money into the citizens' pockets by implementing the transportation system than they're paying into the system through their gas taxes. So it's very worthwhile for a whole lot of different reasons at a lot of different levels. And so that's why we're excited about it as a future grows and as we develop and evolve that system to get it larger. They wanted to go over some of Brevard County's challenges that we have. Total road miles for the county, we've got them shown there by district and paved and unpaved, but the total is just under 1,200 miles. And I'd like to talk about the paved miles there. It's about 1,100 if you subtracted out the unpaved miles. Just remember that number. This thing has a mind of its own. In the last, since the year 2000, the county has spent about almost $234 million in transportation improvements. Some of those in maintenance, which is not on the slide quite right there, but about 20% of that on maintenance, and and I'm talking there, that is purely the maintenance has been paid for by our bond programs, and we spend other money on maintenance on a routine basis. So that's an important number there to recognize. Capacity was about 80% of that. These are the revenue sources that we had to do that with. And this is an illustration that we had used to indicate what our resources have been. So I'm getting into the resource area here. This is a comparison of the counties. We got a couple of the larger cities in the county listed there as well. The county does not have infrastructure sales tax, does not have impact fees. We do have property taxes, but quite frankly, they don't get spent on our transportation improvements. The LOGT is the principal source of our revenue, combined with the constitutional gas tax. We have 6 cents implemented in Brevard County. We could have up to 12. This is another view of what we have. If you look at the 4 different types of revenue sources that are available to us, you look at the adjacent counties. Brevard County has in the middle of the pack, but certainly on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of the quantity there, about less than 14. But if you take those numbers and divide them by the road miles that each of those counties have, this is what happens. And so Osceola is far and away the highest, and Brevard County is far and away the lowest on a per mile basis on the revenue or resource side. That's an important equation because it tells you that we have serious needs that need to be dealt with, and we don't have a whole lot to deal with it at the moment. We do have a unfunded capital improvements plan, if you want to call it that. It's not exactly, if it's not funded, I guess it's not really a plan, right? We have an unfunded list that's about $527 million. This gives you the breakdown of it. Currently, most of it is in capacity. We have sidewalks listed in there, but those are only the sidewalks that are dedicated specifically, and only 2 sidewalks. We've got sidewalks in all of the capacity numbers that are there. The maintenance is listed in there because currently on our maintenance program, we do not have funds, we don't have revenue that will deal with any county roads inside cities in any kind of significant or substantial way. And what that means is we need to find those revenues. And assuming we get them, then we can take care of streets like Babcock and Minton Road and Evans and Hollywood and a few others. So and I'm hoping that I left Bob enough to talk about resources. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Executive Director.
Thank you. First of all, as director of the agency, I'm really pleased with our attendance today, the quality of the content, the preparation that the speakers gave, the level of sophistication of understanding, but yet the straightforward presentations that were made. So I hope you have found this all as useful and informative, certainly as I have. And again, this was, yeah, I'm the boss because they let me be. It's really, I also want to acknowledge the outstanding job that the TPO staff did to pull this all together. So with those introductions, there's what, it's this thing here? The drawer. Oh, okay. That's why everybody is standing back away from the mic. As we talked to earlier, the Transportation Planning Organization, in preparation for our long-range plan, conducted a public survey. The number of respondents was a scientific survey with a selection of respondents that matched the county's demographics, employment rates, male, female, age groups, et cetera. I think there was about 1,200 or so responses. And some of the responses on what aspects of transportation system the respondents would like to see in the future, what they're pleased with, what they're not pleased with. Those things were on the rolling slides at the beginning. What I'd like to focus on are the transportation revenue questions that we asked in the survey. We asked about support for increasing 4 different transportation revenue sources. You got a hint of what they were on the one slide that John showed earlier. But by way of context, transportation finance is a fiendishly difficult and complex topic. It does not lend itself well to sound bites. And in order to give the respondents some sense of context on these different revenue sources, we did provide, as part of the question, an estimate of the annual cost of whatever an increase would be for that particular revenue source, as well as the revenue that it would generate. And being the good planner, I have to truth in planning here. We have a 4.5% plus or minus margin of error. So here we go with the individual. First option, increase property tax by $1 million. We don't use property tax a lot for transportation now. There is some in the unincorporated area that's used for maintenance, but it is an eligible source that could be used much more broadly than we currently do. Do I hit it again? Huh? Okay, that has not much support. Second is increase gasoline tax by 6 cents a gallon, which is the maximum we can increase it under state law. It's only $28 per person per year, but it does only generate $11 million, which actually is not a lot of money, and the opposition to that is very strong. Third, increase sales tax by 1 cent. There is an infrastructure sales tax that can be levied, which does generate good numbers, $62 million a year if it were all used for transportation, and $125 per person per year. But even though the cost impact is relatively high, we do have a split support, 50-50. That was somewhat of a surprise. I did not think that the support would be that great. Fourth is to assess impact fees on new construction. It raises $5 to $10 million annually. This does have rather broad and strong support through all the demographic groups, through all the regions of the county, employed, unemployed, male, female. There was positive support across the board. The fifth option, this is what in transportation planning terminology we call the no-build option, is use existing revenue without increasing any fees. 78% support. So more than 3/4 of our respondents believe evidently that we have enough revenue now and did not want to increase any taxes or fees for transportation. So if we put these into one table, ranking from highest support to lowest, we see that the use existing revenue and impact fees greater than 50%. Sales tax is split, and with a margin of error of 4.5%, it's still a toss-up on which may be in the majority there. But property taxes and gas taxes are not being accepted by our respondents. So, in general, the public does not support increased transportation revenue, and impact fees are the only revenue source with broad public support. So in reviewing and thinking about what may be leading to this response, there is a prevailing no new taxes attitude. There is general satisfaction with the transportation system as we see in our survey, so there could be this feeling that it's working pretty well. Why should we pay more? The level of public understanding of transportation revenue and needs is not very good, and we, as on the public, need to do a better job of communicating that. And on impact fees paid by new construction. It's not paid by an individual generally, so it's easy for someone to say, yeah, I think that's a good idea because I don't have to pay it. So that concludes a summary of our revenue questions on our transportation survey.
Did you see us fighting over who had to give the boss the red light? Nobody wanted to do that. All right. We invited you here until 12. It is now a little bit before 11:30. That is because what you have to say is most important, and we wanted to make sure you have plenty of time to fill out your feedback form and your straw poll. So we are at the end of our presentations. We would ask that you please take some time to ask questions of those speakers that you heard from today. There were lots of new ideas, lots of innovative ideas, lots of exciting things to learn. We didn't have questions, so we wanted to have time for you to ask individuals questions. So please hang out, speakers, and let others talk to you. Remember, if you turn in your paper, you get a prize. How many of you, oh, do you have something you need to say? Your time is up.
We will have the entire package of presentations up on the website next week. It's going to take a little bit of time to break them up into pieces, but I just want to let you know we went through these very fast. We will have them available on the spacecoasttpo.com website.
You also have the opportunity to take the survey. The survey is still available on our website and at Space Coast 2040 website. So if you've not taken the survey and you want to influence those results, you can still take the survey for a couple more weeks. I guess all I want to say is, if you learned something today, please stand up. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.